folks, it's me, Michaela, and welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be starting a new reading vlog today. I've decided I'm going to be putting in the effort now to actually use my microphone. This will be part of the videos from now on. Sometimes maybe I'll get it out of frame, but I kind of just like holding it. It makes me feel fancy. But I also feel like if my microphone is going to be part of my videos so much that perhaps I should name it. So if you have any ideas of what I should name my microphone, let me know. For context of like me naming things, for example, my ukulele is named Siobhan. That's the vibe we're going for when it comes to suggestions for the microphone. Obviously, the obvious thing to call it would be Blue, but that's too basic. I need something that fits better. Anyway, today I'm going to be starting a new reading vlog, and that reading vlog is going to be episode number 2 of reading books I was supposed to read last year. If you haven't seen the first episode, do go watch that because you kind of need to watch it before you watch this one, just because of the books I'm reading. For the past 2 years, 2023 and this current year, I have made a reading list. 23 books in 2023, 24 books in 2024. Only thing is, in 2023, I did not read the 23 books. So I made a reading vlog where I read books I was supposed to read last year. Still haven't finished the list, so we're back again for round 2 of reading books I was supposed to read in 2023, because I do want to complete that list. And based off of my previous video, which I will link for you, it clearly was very successful. I have a very good idea of books I will like because I enjoyed very much so both the books I read in the last video that were on my 23 books in 2023. So clearly I should continue. I do have my iPad here, and I have my iPad here today because I am going to be reading from Libby again. I know it's pretty weird for me. I feel like I really have been on buying a lot of books, which is a problem for my wallet, as well as reading physical books. I do prefer to read physical books, but I have been loaning things on Libby. I just haven't been reading them. But that's okay, because putting loans on Libby for your library is still activity for your library and supports your library. Continue to hold and loan books from your library, even if you're not reading them, because it still helps. And then maybe you will be like me and finally read them one day. So if you saw the first video, episode 1, if you will, I read Jade City. And so what I have here today, I have no idea if you can see this because this is a screen, but it's Jade War. I'm going to be reading Jade War by Fonda Lee. I got the hold in. I think it's time to read it. I really enjoyed Jade City. I hadn't read an urban fantasy in that way. I don't really know if I've read any urban fantasy other than Jade City, actually, now that I think of it. What else would be considered urban? I've read The Cruel Prince. That's kind of urban, but not really, because the fantasy side of it is very a separate world from the human side. So I wouldn't really call that necessarily urban fantasy. So yeah, I can't really think of anything. So I guess this is the only urban fantasy I've been reading, but I really enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed Jade City. I think the only downside to it was the fact that I read it digitally, because I just don't really enjoy reading digitally as much as I do reading physically. I think I mentioned this before, but I have this issue with reading digitally where if I'm reading something on a screen, my brain is night night. It's bedtime. I can read a book, not fall asleep. I start reading off of my iPad or my phone, 10 seconds in, I'm nap time. So that makes it kind of difficult to read books, especially when you're reading books that are 500 pages. But yeah, I feel like this intro is getting unnecessarily long at this point. So I'm going to just start reading Jade War. And I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to love it, because I usually like sequels more than initial books, because you already are so invested in the world by reading the first book. Let's just get into that. We're reading fantasy. We're reading urban fantasy. We're reading books that I was supposed to read last year. We're not reading romance for a change. I really have been on a romance kick. I'm still on a romance kick. I still want to read romance, but I do need to switch it up so I don't burn myself out. So this is what we're going to be doing. It's the weekend, Saturday evening, starting a new book. Let's see how much I read, and I'll update you tomorrow. Also, if I look ridiculous, it's because I was working out and I haven't showered yet because it's still really hot. So I'm thinking I'm just probably going to sweat more when I go for a walk later. Yeah. So if my hair looks ridiculous that's why. It's because I was dying on my yoga mat an hour ago. Okay, thanks. Let's go read a book. Hello, I'm here for an update on the reading vlog. I just finished a workout. I ate dinner and now I'm drinking wine because why not? I did a horrible job cleaning this wine glass. Wow, that is absolutely covered in my fingerprints. But hey, it still holds wine. So, Jade War. Let's talk about it. I'm now about a little over 100 pages in. I'm at chapter 12. I'm not sure if this is in parts the same way as the first book. I feel like it must be. Let me look at the table of contents here. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay, yeah, so there's interludes. So this also is in parts. So I'm still in part 1. I haven't reached the first interlude yet. I am enjoying it so far. There's like a time jump. So there's been approximately a year, I think, since the events of Jade City when we're starting Jade War here. And it did start off like a bit slower than I was like expecting it to because of that. Kind of like the height of emotions and things that we were at the end of the last book, of course, have kind of like died down and settled a bit because time has passed, but things pick up pretty quickly. We're also most definitely now focused more on the like world politics. Jade City, it's very focused on conflicts and politics within K-Con, and specifically like the city of Janloon, where the two major clans are, and like they're kind of opposing. So it's a lot of like how the clans work, the politics within the clans, and then how the clans affect the function of the city and the country. And so now here in Jade War, we're seeing more so implications of the rest of the world, like other countries' conflict and the connections between those countries and K-Con and the clans. The politics of the world are expanding, and I like that because I think if you started to address this in the first book as a reader, you don't have enough of a concept of the world to really understand the intricacies of that. So I think the fact that the first book was like really in depth of like, here's how this small part is functioning, and now we've kind of like zoomed out a bit and we're seeing things. There's also like a bit of like a reveal. I don't really know how that's going to play into. Obviously, I'm going to try and keep this to be pretty spoiler free. If I slip up, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure this will be a spoiler free vlog. That is the intention. After the events that occur in the first book, there's like something that comes up from like that past now, and I'm interested to see kind of like what that turns into, because you're going to be getting new characters, I believe, from that, and I don't know what like the dynamics of it are going to be, but it could be interesting. So I'm intrigued. I have to say, I do like the characters in this book. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that, like, I understand why the point of view is there of Barrow, but I have to say I kind of find Barrow's chapters to be a little boring, just because I find, one, I don't like Barrow, kind of like want to punch him in the face, not gonna lie, but I also think that's kind of the point. I'm just more interested in No Peak, the clan, so, and the family. I love Hilo. I love the relationship between Hilo and the Mikes and Shay, right? Like, and all, is it, why can I never remember his name? It's like in my brain, I can never like spell it. Is it Andon? Why do I think his name is Alden? Where the heck did I get that from? Like, those family dynamics are fun to see because it's like, they're all like relationships that are like both personal, but then also in a way professional because of the way the clans function. So like seeing those kind of dynamics are really interesting. This is like the kind of stuff I like to see. Political and like mind games and war and stuff, but it's fantasy. So like, I don't have to feel bad about it, you know? Like, reading about actual politics and war and stuff I don't like, but like fantasy politics and war and mind games, I love it. Give me more. That's where I'm at. I'm gonna be reading some more tonight. I'm really running out of light now. I think the sun is setting. I probably should have done this update earlier. That's where I'm gonna leave it so far. I'm liking it. I kind of was expecting to like it a little bit more. I was kind of just hoping that we'd dive right into things, but that didn't really happen. Instead, we have, I don't know, it's like, it's just been like a bit of a slower entry point into this book than I was expecting. So I'm just like accepting that now. And things are getting exciting. Things are ramping up, and it's intriguing to get to know more of the world. So with that, I am going to leave you. I'm going to finish drinking my wine, and then I'm desperately going to get the shower that I need after working out in 30-degree weather. Don't recommend. I will see you at the next update. Okay, we're enjoying things so far. Hello, I am back for another update here on Jade War. I just finished interlude 2 2. So I'm just about halfway through the book now. And I have to say that second part, okay, before the interlude, left on quite the cliffhanger, and I'm excited to keep reading. Now, did I also read that and then I had a nap? Yes, but it's Sunday, so I needed to make sure I got a nap in, and it was getting late, and I didn't want to have a nap too late because then I would just ruin my sleep schedule, Once I finish this update, I'm going to be reading more of it because I need to know what happens. My one major comment is that there's a lot of time passing during this book, and sometimes it is hard to follow how much time has passed. It'll just suddenly be Shay's been the weatherman for 2 years, and I'm like, what? It's been 2 years? When did 2 years happen? Little things like that I'm kind of wish was better, because it's harder to follow the storyline properly if it's I don't actually know the timeline correctly, It is also, I think during my first update on Jade War, I mentioned how it was looking at politically the rest of the world and not just K-Con, and that is still true, but it seems more it's focused on politically how K-Con is affected by the events in the rest of the world, and not necessarily K-Con and the clans being involved with the rest of the world, if that makes sense. Still interesting, but it wasn't quite where I thought it was going to be going. I also was expecting there to be a lot more battles and fighting with the clans because it's called Jade War, and I felt like Jade City had a decent amount of that, and that was really exciting, as well as the political games that were going on with the clans as well. It was the fighting and the duels were part of the political landscape in a way. It seems now maybe there's a potential that things might ramp up again and kind of get into that exciting fighting battle thing again. But the entire first half of the book was actually much calmer than I was expecting. Still really interesting. There was a lot of Andon actually in the first part. Well, not the first half. In the first half, there's a lot more Andon's perspective, and that was really interesting because in this book, Andon is in Hispania. I think that's what it's called. And so you're getting to see how green bones in different parts of the world are working and socializing and the dynamics there, which is interesting. So I'm happy with that. I'm really liking it so far. It's a good time, fun time. Really think that things are going to pick up and maybe get exciting here at the end of the book to lead up to Jade Legacy, finale of a trilogy. I feel like the end of book 2 has to be pretty exciting and leave a lot of things open. So I'm very intrigued. I'm going to go read some more and leave it at that. I'm going to try and read a lot tonight, but I don't know if I'll read enough to then do another catch-up update today or tomorrow morning, maybe tomorrow evening once I get home from work will be a better time for that. I don't know. We'll see. But in the meantime, yeah, I'm gonna go read. Really liking it so far. I'm kind of thinking maybe it's a 4. I'm not absolutely obsessed with it, because again, I kind of was expecting it to be a little more action exciting. It's still exciting in the intricacies of how things are working, but it doesn't give the same excitement as I think when I was really into Jade City. Devoured the end of book 1 because it was just really hooked me. So I haven't really felt hooked until kind of I think now going into the second half of this book, maybe I will be hooked and I will not be able to put it down, but we'll see. Yeah, that's it. Okay, bye. Why, hello there. I'm back with another update here on Jade War. I am now about 450 pages in, so I'm not quite at the third interlude because this kind of third part of the book after the second interlude is very long. And I have to say, my main thought right now is that Fonda Lee's pacing in this book is absolutely amazing. It has these more political mind focused kind of things, and then just as you're this is getting a little slow, she just slaps you in the face with something that you did not see coming. Every single table turned, flipped over. This book is flipping tables. I'm having a great time. Literally the last few chapters I just read, I was and I'm what, 70% of the way through this book now or something? 76. There's still a quarter of the book left. What else is going to happen? what else could possibly happen? Like this, like a lot has already happened. Like I know I was saying that the first part of the book felt a little slow, but I think it was like, it wasn't necessarily that it was slow, it was just slower than my expectations. I was expecting this book to start off with a big bang, and instead it's just been like slowly creeping up, and then it just keeps just slapping you in the face out of nowhere, and I'm loving it. Honestly, the things these characters are going through in this book, it's a lot. I don't even know. It's like, I don't even know if you can call it reveals. It's just like these slap in the face moments. And then once you like recover, she throws at you something that shows a connection to something you read earlier that you didn't even think mattered. And guess what? It does. So now I'm like, dang, what's going to happen? Because a lot of things also from like, I think I mentioned how like Andon is in Espania. And so now, like, things are connecting. Things are coming together. And they're relating to each other. Things are weaving, being made, knitted together. I'm seeing the vision, and I'm loving the vision. So I'm losing light, so I'm going to cut this little check-in here. But just know that I am currently dumbfounded, in astonishment, amazed, emotionally wounded a little bit. But I will be reading more of this book. And I kind of think I'm going to be finishing it tomorrow because like it's really getting, it's like the same as Jade City, similar pacing where like you get to a certain part of the book and you just cannot put it down. I forced myself to put it down so I could tell you about it right now because again, I'm losing the light. It's like the sun is setting because I've just been reading and I was just been like, oh, I need to do an update for this video. And then I just kept not doing it because I was like, but I need to read another chapter. So yeah, I need to go read another chapter and then another one and another one and another one until the book is done. So I'll see you when the book is done. I think it's about 150 pages left. I'm just gonna finish this book and then I'm gonna let you know my thoughts. Okay, hi, hello. It is the next day and I was correct. I did finish reading Jade War today. Could not put it down. Well, I had to put it down, but it was not my choice. I was like reading the last bit of it during my break at work today and I got to literally potentially the most dramatic part of the entire book and then my break ended. So I had to like go back to work and finish the day of work knowing that like all of this stuff was happening and I didn't know what was going on. That was like kind of an upsetting afternoon because I was like, oh man, do you think I can like sneak reading a few pages while I'm at my desk so I can know what happens? Because the ending was so good. Oh my god. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. It really ramped up at the end and where it left off for Jade Legacy is so exciting and I cannot wait to read that book. Maybe I do an episode 3 of reading books I was supposed to read last year and read Jade Legacy because I don't really want to read Jade Legacy also in this vlog because I feel like that's a little boring. The plan is to read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde next, but I'll talk about that after I talk about Jade War. So the ending, fabulous, fantastic, amazing, cliffhangers, stress, tension, you're worried, you're scared, you're feeling all the emotions at the end of this book. It was very similar to Jade City. I think the character growth in this book was massive and the like implications and the risks were even higher than they have been, and it seems like things are just going up. Conflicts are just getting more and more complicated and high tension. Yeah, it was just really good. I think that this series in general, like Fonda Lee balances really well the like political side and like the political tension and drama with the action of fighting. And I think the Jade abilities and how it works in the world as a magic system and then how it is potentially exploited is really interesting, really thought-provoking, really fun as well, because these Jade abilities basically make certain people superhumans. It was fabulous. It was amazing. Great end to the book. Great end to a second book too. I feel like overall, I said before, the pacing of this book was quite well. I did think it started off a bit slow, but I get it now. It's because it builds. It builds, and once you get halfway through, it's hitting you, and then it calms, and then it hits you even more, and then it calms a little again, and it hits you, and it hits you, and it hits you, and it hits you, and then you're like, I get it. give me more. That's the thoughts on Jade War. And like I said, now I'm going to be reading a classic. Not right away. I'm actually not reading the books for this vlog like back to back, but the next book for this vlog will be The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have, again, been meaning to read this for ages, and I've had it literally on my Libby shelf for months and haven't read it yet. But the time has come. I'm going to be doing it. I really don't know too much about The Picture of Dorian Gray. I think it has something to do with beauty and like the destruction of beauty, maybe. I don't even know. I'll read it and find out, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna read a classic book after reading Jade War, an urban fantasy. Quite the turn of pace, but you know what? That makes things more fun and exciting. So once I start reading The Picture of Dorian Gray, I'll get back to you and let you know my initial thoughts. So there we go. See you later. Welcome back. For you, it has been approximately 1 second, but for me, it has been quite a while since I did an update for this vlog. But I have started reading The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and I actually started reading it a few days ago. I think I started it on Monday, and it's now Thursday, and I'm about 90 pages into it. I think just under 100 pages in, so I'm like a third of the way through the book. And I haven't done an update yet because I felt like doing an update before I was a third of the way through the book was pointless, and also because I just like haven't had a whole lot of thoughts about it so far. I have been reading it pretty slowly so far, but it's also just been a heat wave, so my brain hasn't been working at like top notch speed and capacity. All yesterday I kind of had a headache in the afternoon and evening, so I didn't read at all, even though like normally I would. You know, that's kind of been affecting the reading. I also just haven't been, just dying to pick this book up. I'm not disliking it. I am liking it. There's actually quite a few parts where I read a line and it's quite funny. I have a little chuckle, a little haha. But I think like overall it's just like a very slow paced book, which I think makes it difficult to read fast. It's also very philosophical, so I found if I'm not feeling like really engaged to read, it's almost pointless to, because I read the preface and like the first chapter in a bit and then ended up just having to restart the whole book because I like started reading where I left off in chapter 2 and was like, I don't recall reading any of this book prior to this moment. I apparently didn't retain the information, so I had to start it over again. Like, what's up with that? So unlike me. But I'm not disliking it. Like I said, it's just, I think it's slow. I think it's like getting more interesting now. You're following mainly, there's just a lot of car horns happening outside right now. We're mainly following, there's like Dorian Gray, obviously. He's the guy with the picture. And the whole thing is that like his painter friend, Basil. But his painter friend paints him because he's like met Dorian and Basil's like obsessed with him. He's like, this is my muse. There's like a lot of things that feel very gay. And I'm like, man, look at me reading this during Pride Month. I'm very straight, just by the way. I'm like the straightest human on the planet. I'm so boring. Anyway. That has like nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now. Basil has met Dorian and he's like, this guy's my muse. He's so beautiful. And so then Dorian has the picture of him. And then there's this guy who's named Henry, but he's called Harry because Harry is short for Henry. They're the same freaking length of name, my dude. So he's like a lord. He's all like the philosophical guy. He just says stuff to say stuff. And then so like the Harry guy is like, I should meet this Dorian person. And then guess who shows up? Dorian. And Dorian sees this picture finally. And he's like, curse this photo. It's not a photo, it's a picture. It's a painting. Curse this painting of me, for it will always retain my beauty and my youth, and I will not. And I want to switch places with this painting. And that's kind of like the jumping off point, I guess, for the rest of the book. So Dorian meets like Harry, friend of the painter Basil, and then Dorian becomes obsessed with Harry and all of his philosophical talking. And he starts doing things, So he ends up like falling in love with this actress. This is the part where I'm at now. So he's fallen in love with this actress, Sybil. and he is engaged. Funnily enough, I don't think he ever actually proposed, but they both, Dorian and Sybil, are like, we're engaged to be married. Don't know where either of them came to that conclusion without specifying it, but hey, they did. And so now Dorian is taking his friends Henry, Harry, and Basil to see Sybil, who only has one name. I mean, they all only have one name, but like kind of they have multiple. Anyway, brings them to see Sybil acting. And that's where I am. Also, Sybil has like a younger brother who's not pretty, unlike her, who is pretty. And her brother is like going to Australia, and he like hears about this Dorian person who she doesn't even know his name. Ma'am, you're engaged to him. You don't even know his name. She just calls him Prince Charming. Ma'am, what the heck? This is worse in my opinion than Unravel Me, where the main character in that book meets a man in the woods and then never Googles him. But yeah, Sybil's brother is like, I don't like this mystery man, and if he hurts you, like, he dead. I don't know how he's gonna come back and kill him because he's going to Australia, but that's what he said he was gonna do. Also, yeah, for the classic part of this vlog, I'm just fully gonna give you spoilers because hello, this book was published over a century ago. When was this book even published? I don't even know. I'm using both my devices to record, so I now need to use my third device to Google. Okay, yeah, this was published in 1890. That's 130 years ago. 134 years ago, actually. Math. So, I'm gonna give spoilers, and if you're not for that, sorry, but I think it's more fun when I talk spoilers. Yeah, that's where we're at. That's what's happening. We're at the theater to watch Sybil. We're gonna see what Basil and Harry Henry think of Dorian's actress fiancée Sybil in her acting, I guess. And I assume the picture is coming back. I assume the picture has more to do with the plot, but we haven't spoke about the picture since like chapter 2 or something. I'm just gonna shut up now because I've been talking for long enough. See you when I've read some more and I'll tell you what happens in my own words. Hello. I'm sorry, I feel like I do every single vlog update from this same spot on my couch, but I spent a lot of money on this couch, so I'm gonna sit on it, okay? Also, you get a cute little peek at the murder board. She's still going. There's some struggling happening from the past heat wave and humidity. Peter here has really been falling off the wall, but I just don't have the heart to take this down. Anyway, I'm now 2/3 of the way through the picture of Dorian Gray, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was getting hella bored. I was getting lost. I was getting like, why are we doing this there in the middle? And then what I just read smacked me in the face. Like, oh my god, I can't believe that just happened. So obviously, like where we left off, Dorian was bringing his friends Henry, Harry, and Basil to the theater to see Sybil, his fiancée, perform, and they go and Sybil sucks. Like, she is horrible at acting. Dorian is like, what is happening? Harry, he just leaves. He's like, this is so bad, I gotta go. Basil is like, ugh, sorry dude, that's kind of rough, but at least she's really pretty. I'm sure you love her, have fun. And then so after the show, Dorian goes to see her. I do have to correct myself from before. I said she didn't know his name. She does know his name. She just insisted on calling him Prince Charming and then didn't tell anybody else his name. But she also only knew his first name. Still questionable. But Dorian goes and he's like, wow, you sucked tonight. And she was like, I know. It's because now I know the realities of love. I can no longer live in my fake acting life. So now I suck at acting. And he's like, well, that was the only thing I liked about you, so I'm leaving you. Bye. Short-lived romance there. Dorian goes home and then he goes to look at his picture of himself that he loves and realizes that the picture has changed and there's now these lines of cruelty on the face of his picture, and he's like, what have I done? One, he's like, that thing I asked for way back when has come true, and now the picture is aging and showing the differences of his life while his complexion stays the same. He's like, uh-oh, and then he starts feeling bad. He's like, I was really mean to Sybil. I was kind of really mean to Sybil. So he spends the whole night, kind of thinking it over, and then he's like, I'm gonna write her a letter, and I'm I'm going to get back together with Sybil and marry her because that's what I should do. And then his friend Henry Harry shows up and he's like, oh, Dorian, did you see my letter? And he's like, no, I've been writing a letter to go back to Sybil and tell her I love her. And he's like, oh, that's kind of going to be a problem because my letter was to tell you that Sybil has in fact died. Sybil's gone. No more Sybil. Apparently after Dorian broke up with her, she went and she drank some little poison. Very Juliet of her. So now she's gone and Dorian's like, I'm really distraught about that. But then he gets over it like really quickly because he's like, that was an emotion I had yesterday and I'm over it now. Nothing I can do about it. Questionable behavior. And his friend Basil comes to be like, I've come to console you because I've heard your fiance has died. And Dorian's like, yeah, but that was yesterday, so don't talk to me about it. I want to be sad again. To which Basil is like, what is wrong with you? And he like leaves. He's like, I can't even believe you're like this. So then Dorian gets a book also at the same time as a letter from his friend Henry Harry. And this book is like about this French guy who did all this like debauchery and he's talking about it. And Dorian becomes like obsessed with this book to the point where he gets like a bunch of different copies of it and then like has them all bound in different colors so he can like match them to all of his outfits. It's not actually to match them to all of his outfits. It says to match all of his moods. But I'm sorry. I'm picturing Dorian being like, I need my green book today to go so I can carry it around and read it. And tomorrow I will want my red one. Anyway, he becomes like obsessed with this book. And this is where I became like really bored because it kind of just starts like listing things. I'm not even exaggerating. Like I swear, I think, what is it? Chapter 11? Chapter 11 is just like a list. It's just a list of stuff because Dorian just like decides to live his life like this French guy that in this book he's obsessed with. And then he also like decides to like study all things beautiful. So it's like he studied jewelry and then it just lists off a bunch of like old, rich, dead, famous, whatever, aristocratic people who had fancy jewels. And then it was like he then was like obsessed with tapestries and embroidery, and then again like just lists, and I'm like, I don't need to read all that. Why is this here? So then I was getting really bored and I was like, oh my god, is this book going down the drain? But fear not, for it did not go down the drain, because then, okay, as we know, Dorian, right, he's not aging anymore, because the picture is. So he's going around and everybody like loves him despite the fact that he's doing all of these like really not cool things in society, because like, but look, he's so young and innocent, he can't possibly have done all these things that are rumored because he's just so beautiful. The logic, we don't know where the logic for these people went. But he's like walking home on his 38th birthday and he like still looks young as ever, and he comes across his old friend Basil. Haven't seen him in a while. Basil's like, oh my god, Dorian, I was just at your house, I was waiting for you, and then, you know, I just like felt bad so I left, but I'm going to Paris for 6 months, so I'm so glad I saw you because I needed to talk to you. And Dorian's like, okay, well, fine, come in. And then Basil is all, Dorian, I've heard all of these rumors about you, and like, tell me it's not true. Why are you doing all these horrible things? And then Dorian's like, you want to see my soul? You want to see my soul? Come look at my soul. Because he's like, either the picture, he wants to look at it all the time, or it like terrifies him and so he doesn't want to look at it. So he had it like brought upstairs. It's like locked away in a room and hidden in this like dusty old room at the top of his house, and he like has the only key to it, and he like put up bars and stuff because he's like afraid of anybody seeing this picture of him. And so he like brings Basil up there, and then Basil sees it and he's like, oh, it's true, why are you so horrible? Like, you can just pray it away, Dorian. We can pray together and you can, you know, wash away all of these horrible sins you've done that have appeared on your portrait. And Dorian's like, it's too late. And what does Dorian do? He kills him. He stabs Basil no more. And then, okay, this is the weirdest part, that he just locks the body in the room. He's like, I don't want to deal with that. It brings up too many emotions. And again, it's kind of like Sybil. He's like, well, that already happened. That was the past because it was 30 seconds ago and I did that. So I don't want to look at it anymore. So I'm just going to lock it away in this room, I guess, to rot. And then I'm just going to go downstairs and I'm going to just hide that bag and then walk outside and then come back and ring the door so that my servant will come like answer the door and like I can pretend like I didn't show up until now. Great. Alibi. So that's the part I'm at, and I'm like, wow, what a turn. I think right now like the book is still sitting at like a 3-star for me because that middle part was so boring, and so I literally almost fell asleep while reading it because I was like, are you serious? You're listing things at me, Oscar Wilde? I don't understand what's happening here. Maybe I'm just like too dumb to get it, but I was like, why do I need to know all of this? Like, just tell me that he looked into jewels and then he liked embroidery and all the beautiful things of the world or whatever, and then like move on to the part where he starts killing people. That's way more exciting. Okay, yeah, it's like a 3 stars. It balances out, I think, the like boring and like the fun. There's still like some lines in it that are just like funny and I like it, but it's taking me longer to read as well because it is like so philosophical, and then it's also kind of like that older style of writing, obviously, because it was like written in 1890. It's like taking me longer to comprehend what's being written, but I'm still hoping to like finish the book today. So that's that. I'm gonna keep reading. I'm gonna tell you when I'm done and give you my final thoughts on the book, but like I'm hoping things get like just more like just off the cuff wild, you know? I want Dorian to start doing crazy stuff, so that's the hope. See you for the final update of the vlog. I finished reading The Picture of Dorian Gray. I finished reading it yesterday, actually, but for whatever reason, completely unknown to me, my lower back decided to just hate me yesterday, so was not in the mood to be filming. Guess I'm just old now, I don't know. But I did finish reading The Picture of Dorian Gray. So let's talk about what happens there at the end of this book. Luckily, there is no more just like chapters of listing random things. Thank goodness. If there was more of that, I would have potentially lost my mind, but we're safe. So as we know, Dorian killed Basil and then just like left his body in the room. Luckily, he did not leave it there to just rot away. Thank goodness, because I was like highly concerned by that behavior. He instead calls this guy named Alan, who's not his friend anymore. They were friends, not anymore. Calls Alan over to his house because Alan is like a chemist, and he's like, Alan, there's something upstairs that I need you to like get rid of. And Alan is like, I'm not getting involved. And then Dorian's like, he killed himself. And then Alan's like, I'm not getting involved. And then Dorian's like, okay, I killed him. And then Alan's like, I'm really not getting involved. So then Dorian's like, okay, I'm gonna blackmail you. So then Alan's like, okay, fine. Alan disposes of Basil's body, okay, and then leaves. And then Dorian is like, ugh, feels so much better. I was really concerned about getting caught, so that's great for me. He goes to like a party, and his friend Henry Harry is there, and Henry Harry is like, where did you go after you left yesterday? And Dorian's like, nowhere. I just walked around. Okay, so then he's like panicking because he's like, oh no, I'm gonna get caught, and like that would be the worst thing ever. He feels like no guilt about killing Basil because he's like, well, Basil deserved it. He painted the picture that ruined my life. But my concern is about me. So Dorian goes home and like burns the belongings of Basil, and then he's like, this is better. But I don't like remembering things, so I'm gonna go to an opium den. So he hails a little cab, okay, a little horse and buggy, out into like the faraway suburbs of London, I guess, to go to this opium den, and then like sees this guy that he knows and is like, wow, I kind of ruined that guy's life. Oh well. So then he's like leaving, and somebody calls him Prince Charming, which, if we remember, is what Sybil called him. And guess who's at this opium den bar scenario? Jim James. I actually don't know if I've ever even mentioned Jim James before now. Jim James is Sybil's brother. His name is not actually Jim James. His name is James, but Sybil calls him Jim, and since I'm calling everybody by 2 names, I might as well start calling him Jim James. So if you remember, Jim James, when Sybil was like, I'm engaged to Prince Charming, was like, if that guy hurts you, he's dead. Like, I'm gonna come back from Australia and end him. Apparently, Jim James is back from Australia, and it's 18 years later, and he hears Prince Charming, and he's like, that's the guy. Time to die. Apparently Jim James is a poet, so he goes after Dorian to like catch him, and Dorian's like, I'm sorry, sir, but like, why would you be trying to kill me? Like, look how young and beautiful I am. Could I have possibly been around to be in love with your sister and ruin her life 18 years ago? I don't even think so. So then Jim James is like, oh, you're right. And then he's all distraught. He's like, I just almost killed a guy. And then the person, the woman like at the bar that told Jim James that Dorian was Prince Charming was like, what are you talking about? No, like, he has been around here for 18 years. Like, that guy just looks really young. And then Jim James is like, and I let him get away. I need to get my revenge. But Dorian has escaped. Then Dorian has a house party. Oh my god, fun. He's like flirting with the women because he's still all into debauchery. He decides he's like gonna go outside and like collect some flowers, and he faints. And he faints because he saw Jim James. He saw Jim James in the window, and he fainted because he's like, Jim James is coming to end me. Oh no. So he like hides in the house for a few days because he's like, I'm too scared to go outside. And then when he finally does go outside, it's for like a little hunting party, and he's with this guy who's named Jeffrey. Never calls him Jeff, so I can't call him Jeffrey, which is disappointing because it ruins my whole thing of everybody having two names. Rude. Jeffrey like sees this rabbit, and Dorian's like, don't shoot it, it's so beautiful. But then Jeffrey is like, who cares, and shoots. But then instead of shooting the rabbit, he shoots a man, and then the man's dead, and everybody's like, oh no, the shooting really needs to be over for the day now. That's kind of unfortunate. And so when the servants come to Dorian to tell him about the guy that died, they're like, yeah, don't even know who that was, just some man, kind of looked like a sailor. And Dorian's like, a sailor who perhaps was in Australia? I need to see the body. So he goes to see the body, and he's like, it's Jim James. And he's like, oh my god, my life has been saved. Jim James can't kill me because he was accidentally killed by Jeffrey. Oh my god, yay. Dorian's like, you know what, this is like a great time. I should just turn my entire life around, you know? Sure, my picture up in the locked away cabinet upstairs or whatever is like hideous, extremely old, literally has blood on its hands. But if I can do all of these horrible things to make it look like that, I can just be good now, and it'll reverse everything. So he goes and does like one good deed. Literally, he does like one good thing, and then he's like bragging to his friend Henry Harry about it, and Henry Harry is like, haha, laughing at him because he's like, you haven't changed. And Dorian's like, I am changing myself. I'm good now. And like goes to look at his picture, and the picture actually hasn't changed. The picture is still horrible. It still reflects all of his bad deeds and sins and whatever. And he decides, you know what needs to end? This picture. So he gets a knife, and then he stabs the picture, and the book ends with his servants breaking down. They actually break through a window because they can't break down the door because he's put too many bars and locks on it. Inside the room, they find this like really like shriveled up old man with a knife in his heart like on the floor, and then the picture of Dorian Gray on the wall looking pristine and perfect. And the only way they're able to identify that it's Dorian who's dead is because of his like fantabulous rings on his hand, and like that's how the book ends. It was good. Like, I gave it a 3.5. I did find it entertaining. There's definitely some just like huge lulls in the book. Like, if the plot was just the fun parts, I would have been having a great time. I think also there's just like a lot of references in this book that if I wanted to take the time to actually like look them up and understand the context, I probably would like the book more, but I just like wasn't in the mood to do that. So I kind of just like kept reading and hoped that it was like fine that I didn't get it. Because you can't understand everything. If I was like reading this book to actually like be very critical thinking about it, like if I was reading it for school or something, obviously I would look into all of that so I'd like understand contexts, but like I'm just here for a fun time, okay? So Dorian like killing himself by stabbing a picture at the end, fabulous. Is there like a lot I could potentially think into about beauty and like the soul being represented in his photo image, and then the fact that he's stabbing it and blah, 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 being good, not reversing your sins, blah, 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 blah. Like yeah, sure, I could probably have like a lot of thoughts about that, but like I'm choosing to just go off of vibes right now. Like, sue me. You don't always have to be like a literary critic. I'll read it again sometime and be more of a literary critic towards it, but this time round I just wanted vibes, and sometimes the vibes really were there. Like things like Dorian having like 17 copies of a book all in different colors so that he could read the color that he was in the mood for, fantabulous. Dorian literally like crying over his picture being too pretty and him losing his beauty, great. Lovely, amazing. They're like things that are funny. There really are. There's just like times when it was like so slow. Cough, cough, chapter 11. I really hope it actually is chapter 11. That is that chapter I'm talking about. But it's like somewhere around there in the middle of the book where you're just like, what? Why? Why are you telling me all of this? It was like a fine book. It was good. Definitely not my favorite classic. I don't think I'm going to be thinking about it the same way I think about Wuthering Heights. You know, sometimes I think about the stuff that happened in that book and it like still gets me. Anyway, Picture Dorian Gray was fine. 3.5 out of 5. Liked it. It was like above average, not fantabulous, not amazing. For me personally, I think this is a book like most classics where you kind of really need to be in the mood to read the classic. You also need to be prepared to like look into things to really understand what's happening, because there are going to be a lot of like references that you might not get because obviously we're living in present day society and not the time when these books were written. I think those are all factors that come into play. I think a lot of classics are better upon reread than they are upon initial read because of that reason. But there we go. Those are my thoughts. That's the video. That's the vlog. I have no idea what's been happening in this video. Like, this started off as a spoiler-free reading vlog, and then it just turned into me telling you the entire plot of The Picture of Dorian Gray. So like, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there, but I just went with it. If you happen to like this video, make sure to give it a like, give it a little thumbs up. If you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I would be happy to have you. Do comment down below your thoughts on these books. Also comment down below some ideas for names for my microphone. So far I have been thinking perhaps Sebastian or Eleanor. My sister suggested Eleanor and I kind of like that. So fire away some more thoughts on potential mic names down below. Thank you. And yeah, with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.